Right. Welcome. We're trying to get the lighting fixed. There's for some reason still this issue, but my name is Anthony DiUlio. I am one of the owners and partners at Wheeler, DiUlio, and Barnaby. Welcome to part 7 of our perfect claims for the lunch and learn. For those of you who have never been here before, we do these lunch and learns as a free, in essence, class for adjusters in the industry, contractors who are interested in learning the better practices so that we can kind of push back in a uniform way against these monolith insurance companies. We've always got to remember they have nearly endless funds and supplies of money to be pushing back against us. So the better we work as a team together, the better approaches we have, the more we do as an industry, the better off it will make all of us. This series that we're doing right now is called The Perfect Claim. We're really focusing on day 0 when you are first starting your adjusting practice all the way through the end of a claim and what to do when a claim resolves or there's still amounts in dispute. We're talking about every stage. If you haven't had an opportunity, you can always go back and watch these, as is always the case with ours, either on Facebook, our website, or YouTube. They are available on all 3 platforms. So go back and take a look. There's some really great ones that have come up and are absolutely worth talking about. Today, we are going to be going over presenting the claim. Show your work. And this is all going to talk about how we are going to show the claim to the insurance company so that you put the best foot forward, get the best opportunity to get a claim covered, and to ultimately get the best results for yourself and the insured. As I start every single one of these from this series, we have this disclaimer. Not every claim is perfect. I'm not saying every claim can be perfect. I'm not saying that just because a claim doesn't fit within any of the guidelines that I'm talking about, that it for some way or for some reason should not be covered as part of the claim. Things happen, mistakes will certainly show themselves, but all of those factors need to be taken into consideration when determining coverage for a claim. So just because these are followed does not mean it is a basis for denying a claim. Special announcement. We made the initial one last month at our webinar, but I want to bring it up again because we are getting some fantastic feedback. And it is the PAGPS, Public Adjuster Greater Philadelphia Summit. This is organized by myself and Holly Soffer with the assistance of Mapia and Appia. We were really, really excited to be able to bring a 2-day conference, 10 credits to you as the public adjusters across the country. Right now, our credits are being focused in New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Maryland. Of course, if we get enough feedback from other states, we can add those in, assuming time is permitting. But there will be 10 credits that are being offered, and it's really inexpensive. In the grand scheme of conferences, I actually don't think there's one out there that is less expensive than this. And we have some amazing, amazing opportunities to learn here. If you are a Mapia member, it is only $79 for 2 days, which will include lunches. It'll include a happy hour, breakfast. I mean, it's really an all-inclusive type deal for those days. And if you are not a Mapia member, it is only $179. It is worth every penny. At the conference, we are going to have some absolutely stellar speakers going. We're going to have one of the only, I think it's like 42 Xactimate instructors in the entire world, people who are certified to actually teach Xactimate. This is higher than your Tier 3, Level 3 certification for Xactimate. They are even higher than that. They're literally some of the best in the world. And we have one of them coming to speak to discuss the secrets of Xactimate, things that you're missing in your everyday estimates, how to make sure you're using the software properly. That alone makes it worthwhile, but we also have a roofing contractor who's coming in to talk about new technology in the roofing space where you can use tech to prove losses that were previously disputed by carriers. It gives you concrete evidence that cannot be disputed by the carrier with this new technology that they can discuss at the conference. We have multiple national adjusters who are coming out to discuss arguing the claims to a better outcome for you. In essence, presenting the claims to the carrier. Much of the things that we go over in these, only firsthand experience from them, to really talk about those secrets throughout the process to make sure you've got the right argument going forward. Finally, we also have a Q&A/debate between yours truly and a defense attorney for the insurance companies. And what we're going to do is have a live Q&A debate where it will be moderated and have you as the audience able to ask questions directly to insurance company coverage counsel to address some issues that are constantly coming up. What is the insurance company thinking when they're doing these things? They will have those types of insights. It will be a really, really incredible opportunity. So if you want to sign up, I was really proud of myself. We've got a QR code for you. You can scan this from wherever you are right now, right on your computer screen. If you're watching from a computer, scan this and it'll take you right to the registration page. Otherwise, it's just Mapia, mapia.org/PAGPS. Really can't miss it. So head on over there, register. You want to make sure you get your space saved before this runs out. It is being held in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, a nice central location, not far from the Philadelphia airport for anyone that is traveling, right on Route 70. Couldn't be easier to get to. So please take a look, sign up, and we will be excited to have you there. All right, so last month, part 6, we talked about writing letters. And we spent an entire hour talking about how letter campaigns should be done, what to look for in expert reports, how to do proper expert reports when you need to be doing them, and what you're looking for in your own experts and conversely in defense expert reports to make sure yours are strong and see where their weaknesses are. It was a really great course. We had a lot of great feedback from it. So go back if you didn't get a chance to watch that one and take a look. I think it's really valuable because one of the number one areas that I see mistakes from public adjusters is in either no letter writing at all, which is crazy to me, or letter writing that is lackluster, to say the least. There is a right way to do it, and we go through that in that lesson. So go take a look. Again, you've got it on Facebook, YouTube, or our website, wdblegal.com. So let's jump in. What we're going to go over today, we're going to talk about what documents you want to have ready when you are doing this initial presentation of a claim. We're going to talk about what you want to get your first joint inspection, what to do after that inspection is to do when you get some pushback. Now, all of these aspects are going to focus on the relationship and the inspection with the adjuster in kind of a claim, right? Making sure that they are in agreement with you. It is far too often that we go into this process feeling like we are adversaries. And look, I get it. We are on different sides of the equation, and we do have differing opinions and different perspectives. But the truth is, there is one actual answer, right? There is a reason that the roof is damaged. There is a reason or a length of time that that water was leaking for. All of these things, there is an absolute truth to them. And the goal for everybody, the insurance company and the public adjuster, should be to find the absolute truth. Find that aspect of the claim that cannot be disputed so that we are getting to the right results. So how do we do that? We've got some goals that we need to have for every first inspection. And you should keep these in mind every time you have that first meeting with the insurance company or their third-party representative. Keep these in mind because they will guide you through the entire process that you're presenting the claim. First and foremost is setting expectations. This is absolutely critical, and I mean critical, for the entire development of a claim. From that moment of setting the expectations, you are going to determine right then and there how easy or difficult this claim is going to be. What do I mean by that? Well, first and foremost, I don't know if you know this, but a nice secret of the trade and something you're only going to get if you watch these lunch and learns is tidbits like this. Setting the reserve might be the most important aspect of a claim for the purposes of your handling. And when I say setting a reserve, if you don't know, insurance companies, as soon as they are presented a loss, they set a reserve amount in their claims file so that they have money set aside automatically for this loss. Whether they use all of it or not is a different story. But setting the reserve is critical. And there's a reason that it is so critical. To change that reserve, they have to get authorizations from people higher up than themselves within the system. They have to explain themselves, and it is looked over with a fine-tooth comb by the carriers as to why they're changing the reserve amount. They don't want to change the reserve amount because they are actually audited for how often the reserves must change, because they need to show for reinsurance purposes that when they set reserves, they're the proper reserves to cover a loss, so that everybody knows we're doing things the right way and we're not risking money that we don't have earmarked for losses. So it's really important on the carrier side to set a reserve and be accurate with that reserve. So to that end, you want to make sure that you're getting the carrier to set a reserve on this loss that is appropriate, so you don't have to go back to them and change their mind. Again, much, much easier for you down the road if you're negotiating within whatever that reserve amount is. To do that, there's a negotiating technique called anchoring. Anchoring, in essence, means you're setting an initial spot in their mind for a value of the claim that may or may not be realistic, but sets the tone for their gauging of where things are going to end up and how much it moves for them to win. So what do I mean by that? Let's say you've got a loss and you go out to it and you don't know yet. You do your initial walkthrough. It could be anywhere from $20,000 to $60,000 to do the work. You've got to crunch the numbers, but you don't really know. And you make your determination that you ultimately think it's probably going to be somewhere in the 40 range. Once you do your estimate, great, $42,000, all is well with the world. And you talk to the carrier and you tell the carrier, look, this claim could be upwards of 70 or 80,000. That's anchoring them in a really high level number that might be extreme, might be even beyond your estimate, but still anchors them in some level of reality to give them a starting point of anywhere you come down from here is a win for us, right? So if they think your number is going to be 80,000 and they ultimately resolve it for 40,000, they're a hero, right? They've knocked you down 50%. And it's much easier to negotiate them down from there. It's the exact same reason that carriers will often come back with a lowball first offer, or try and do a walkthrough and explain to you that oh, this is $1,000 of damage. What are you talking about? They're doing the exact same thing to you. So you want to make sure that you recognize I can set that anchor in the first few sentences of my discussions with the adjuster, so that we have an understanding. So when you're setting up that appointment, even before you get there, set that anchor in their head for what to expect. It's really important that happens the very first time you have a conversation, so that they can set those reserves, hopefully based off of your anchor number, so that you can provide a baseline for them to say, any authority within here, I've now got it to do what I need to do. All is well with the world when we need to negotiate below that number. So really, really great technique to make sure you are working within the realms of that set limit. Next, we talk about limiting the work for the carrier. Every time you go to an inspection with a carrier, every time you make a discussion with the carrier, you want to make them do as little work as humanly possible. That should be one of your number one goals in every claim that you have. And the truth is, people like doing less. Right? Shocking, I know, but people don't like to do extra work. And if you give them everything that they need without them having to do anything, you will find you get far better results, because they are much, much more likely to just accept what you give them if you give it to them in the right way, and use that information to formulate their position on the claim as well. They don't have to redraft the ESX file if you send them a copy of yours as a courtesy to say, here you go, you can work off of this. You're going to get better results that way, especially because if you do things like come to the PAGPS, then you will know that the Xactimate line items that you have in there are the ones that need to be, and they won't go through and miss putting them in there. Sure, maybe they take something out, but you are far, far more likely to get a more comprehensive estimate providing that type of work for them. Anything that limits the amount of work they have to do, it will result in a better claim outcome for you. Nearly guaranteed every time. Last but not least, you always want one of your goals to be providing proof. Right? We talked about this in some other lunch and learns, and it's just as important, and I'll probably say it 20 more times before this series is over. You need to provide proof. Give them a reason not to deny the claim right away. And if you provide them that information, you will have a much better chance of getting the positive outcome that the homeowner deserves and pays for under the policy. So you want to set those expectations, you want to limit the work for the carrier, and you want to provide them the proof they need to just pay for your claim. One of the things we talked about last Lunch and Learn, was how the carriers need to justify almost everything they do on a file. Every dollar they pay, every proof of loss they accept, everything, every scope item that they are accepting coverage for, those need to be justified by them. So by giving them that proof, it allows them to justify it, have their proof, and just move on to their next claim. So what do you want to have ready when that first inspection comes around? And this is going to get some pushback, because I can nearly guarantee there are people that are on this webinar, or certainly adjusters that I've worked with, that don't do this. They've got their own reasons, and I get the concept of being busy and not wanting to do some of this when you present a loss. But this is the best way to do it. I certainly understand there are alternative methods to doing this, and you might have your reasons for doing it. But this is going to get you the best results across the board. Claims change between a $5,000 loss and a $500,000 loss. And I certainly understand that. And what you're going to do for smaller claims versus larger claims may be a little bit different. But the truth is, you can use this process in almost every claim if you've got the right system set up. So when you go out for your very first inspection, you should have your estimates ready across the board. Every dollar that you're going to be searching for, short of ALE, because it's probably an ongoing number, you're going to want those numbers presented if at all possible. Whether it be using Xactimate, a time and material, or a contractor's estimate, you want to have the numbers presented to the carrier, and you want them presented in a way that is easy to understand and easy to follow. Things that they can then justify paying for, so long as we're all on the same page for whatever the expenses may be. So have that ready to go when the inspection occurs. The other big benefit, as we talked about, your limited amount of work they have to do. If you've already got your estimate done, they can use that as the jumping off point for their estimate. They could even take your ESX if it's shared with them and base their estimate off of that scope. It can make life a lot easier. You want to have a photo report prepared and ready to go for that first inspection. And the reason being is, if you can show that you've documented the loss and provided these photographs to the carrier, you'll see not most of the time, a lot of the time, you will see that they don't do the same extent of photo documentation on their end, because you've provided them the photos, you've shown the loss, that they become a lot more relaxed about what they're documenting when they go out to the loss. And you'll see they'll do, their big wide angle shots, but it won't get nearly as detailed, because they recognize, oh, we've got the detail already taken care of, and we have an actual photo report. In a perfect world, your photo report will look like 2 photos top to bottom with a description on the side as to what the room is and where what the damage is, what we're seeing in that loss. So whether it be living room overview or water damage to living room ceiling, whatever it may be, have that descriptor in there as well. You also want your causation reports. And this one might be the most important. I put it up there probably with the estimate. But if you have your causation reports from day one, you limit the number of times the carrier will feel they need to send their own people out. Now, by no means, I am not trying to tell you that if you do these things, the carrier is never going to send their own engineer. That's ridiculous. Of course, they will sometimes send their own engineer. They're going to send out Seek now, or they used to be Ladder now, or they'll send out Hancock. And they're going to come out to the property. I get it. But doing these things will limit that to a much smaller number, because what you're giving the carrier is the proof that they need from the start as to why they're paying for a claim. The important part here, roofing report, or your plumber report, or your engineer, if it's justified, is to have the proper report done. It is not good enough in most cases to just have the roofing report say storm damage to roof, repaired all the shingles, right? Replaced roof needs to be replaced. You want more than that. Sometimes that's all we get, and we do with it what we can. I get it. It happens. It even happens in litigation. But the truth is, if you can get a report that says there's storm damage to the roof, Here are the photographs of the storm damaged portions. Here's how I know that it's storm damaged, and here's the weather report showing the storm. You create a much, much better proof for the carrier to actually justify. The times that they don't take these, the times that they don't accept these reports, are when those reports that you get are lacking, right? They don't have all of that information. So really try hard to build those reports so that they are all presented at the time of the inspection, so they don't feel like they need to send out someone of their own. It really will make a difference. You've got to remember that they've got their own training on this, right? They're looking for the holes in your story, right? They're trying to find the gaps in what you're telling them so that they can, find reasons not to believe you. They're looking for the undisclosed issues, right? Oh, well, sure, you're telling me, about this the wind damage to the shingles, but what about this other portion of the roof that, is beat the hell in a handbasket from what is clearly, 50 years of wear and tear. They want to find that undisclosed stuff, again, to try and poke holes in your story. To these issues, you can address these head on, and you absolutely should. It should never appear like you are trying to hide it, ever. It only raises red flags for everybody involved. You should be open and say, oh, we've got some wear and tear issues over there. I'm absolutely aware of them. I want you to be clear. We're not claiming any issues relating to wear and tear. While we know they exist, we're focusing strictly on the wind damage to the roof. Because if you come out and do an inspection with them and they say, oh, well, can I go look in the attic? And your answer is, oh, well, the attic has nothing to do with this loss. I don't want you to see the attic. And then they ultimately go up there and find some other unrelated issue that you just didn't want them to see because you know that it doesn't look good. Like maybe there's some mold related to the air conditioning. But they're going to say, oh, the mold could be from the roof. You just wanted to avoid it. That is not the way to do this. You are much, much better off fronting the fact that the information exists, explaining why it doesn't matter, and then moving on. You will find people are far, far more receptive to believing you and believing the side if you are forthcoming with all of that information. You've got to remember they are looking for reasons to deny. And I have gotten into some heated arguments with some attorneys and even some carrier adjusters over this issue because they will swear up and down that they are not there to deny a claim. What they say is that they are just there to investigate the loss. They're just looking for the facts, right? They don't say that it's towards coverage or not towards coverage. It's their safety net of how they are approaching the loss. But the truth is, that's not the truth. They are trained throughout this to try and find those reasons to deny and underpay losses. They get orders from up on high that they can't replace roofs anymore. They can only patch. I mean, they are directed through and through as to how to handle these claims. If you didn't see, there was an article from a defense attorney, I believe it was down in Texas, who wrote an entire article on why it is beneficial for insurance companies to delay claims. And it was it was a disgusting thing to read. It was absolutely terrible. It says all the things that we know, but they actually put it in writing. And the whole sell of the argument is you should delay claims because it results in lower payments or no payments, and you just got to make sure you delay it the right way, because if you don't delay it the right way, then you could be in breach of local statutes or bad faith regulations. I mean, it was horrible. But this is the stuff that is the reality of what we're dealing with. And every once in a while, you get that glimmer of the smoking gun like that article to prove it, but it's very difficult. So we know that they are doing this. We have to do everything we can to push back. Don't give them a reason to distrust you. This is really important. You don't want to be the shady character, right? You don't want to be the person that is presenting a loss that doesn't give them all of that information. You want to be someone who builds a relationship with these adjusters who you're going to see over and over again, and they know, oh, John Smith's on this claim. I know John's at least a reasonable person. We're going to get this thing resolved, right? Rather than, oh, John Smith's on this one. This is going to be a nightmare. Now, if you believe that you're going to have a better result being that nightmare person, more power to you. I don't believe it. There's never a scenario where you're going to get a better result that way, because it's going to take you longer. It is going to result in more work, and mostly results in more pushback from the carrier because they are just frustrated as a whole and what you need. There is a way to do this that you can be kind and you can get the right result. So let's talk about building that trust. You want to be the reasonable person. I get it, right? There are costs involved with all of these claims. And there are costs that the homeowner is going to have. And you've got to write for those costs, and you've got to write for them fairly and reasonably. And those can be higher numbers, and it can be disputed by the carrier. I understand all of that. I fight it every day. But there is a line. There is a line when it becomes unreasonable. And you don't want to be putting things in your estimate. You don't want to be asking for things or presenting a claim based off of anything that is unreasonable, because it doesn't help anybody. It doesn't make it easier for you to negotiate down. It doesn't make it easier for the carrier to come up. It doesn't make you more believable or more trustworthy. It only creates problems. So when you're presenting a loss, you need to make sure every line item that you're asking for is reasonable. Every line item can be explained. You're asking for high-grade carpet, you better explain why that's high-grade carpet, because the standard carpet is probably going to be what's reasonable in most homes. Why is this one high-grade, right? If you're going to be using marble flooring versus ceramic, you better be able to have a basis for it. And that's what you're looking for. You want to be the reasonable person across the board. And you're going to find, as you become the reasonable person, not only does the carrier have more respect for you and pay these claims better, but they're going to fight less, because they're going to know that they're getting into it with somebody who does write a reasonable estimate, and it doesn't need to be contested. It's not fluffed up like crazy just to try and change a negotiating point. It's good enough. You want to build the relationship. These are adjusters who you're going to see over and over again. And you all, I can nearly guarantee, all have a reputation out there with these carriers in one direction or another. They've got an opinion about you, and they form an opinion based off of how you're presenting yourself to them and the relationships that you build. Building that relationship through that first inspection and knowing that you are presenting this the right way from day one to the carrier is going to help with that relationship. You want to show some level of give and take. On the first inspections, this happens constantly, where I hear about adjusters who go out and they are gung-ho on their position, and it is the end-all be-all. That is it. And they are unwilling to accept that there might be another explanation for what happened. It's possible that we're wrong. It happens. It doesn't happen to me very often, but no, I kid. It happens to all of us. And we need to be willing to accept that, because, look, if we're wrong, be wrong and own up to it. It's going to give you more credibility on those future claims. Not every claim is do or die. I told you in the beginning, there is a truth, one absolute truth as to what happened to cause this damage. And if we don't have the right explanation, it is not a hill that is worth dying on. There's a way to be firm, reasonable, and kind when you're doing all of this. Just because you are standing by your position doesn't mean you got to be a jerk about it. There's a way to do it nicely, and if it just doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But that doesn't mean that you need to get aggressive with it. You want to give them what they ask for when it is reasonable and it doesn't create any unreasonable burden to you or the property owner. I'd gotten a question earlier today, and I think it's actually on one of the slides for the questions about providing certain documents. The truth is, if you've got documents that they're asking for, it is generally a lot less work just to give them the document and move on, right? If they want it, just give it to them. Unless there is some real, personal information, bank statements, for example, you redact the account numbers or redact the personal identifiers and send over the bank statement. It's perfectly fine, right? Redact every other line that has nothing to do with the loss and just show them the payment to the contractor. Great, no big deal. So give them those documents, be the reasonable side. They will want to work with you more. I'm telling you, if you provide this information during these inspections, you will have the better relationship and the better results. You get more honey with bees than you do with vinegar. Wait, I reversed that. You get more bees with honey than you do with vinegar. I got to fix that. And that is a mentality that I've used and has done me well through my career when it comes to resolving these cases. So the presentation, how do you want to actually give this to the adjusters for the insurance company or whoever you're dealing with? I get that what I'm about to tell you is probably going to sound nuts, but there is a right way and a somewhat easy way to do it. Consistency and ease of use. Those are your two biggest goals when you're presenting packets. Because again, you're dealing with the same people over and over again. So you want to make sure you've got a consistent presentation and a presentation that is easy for anybody to go into and figure out what they're looking at. So you want to have a system in place. And comes to your ease of doing this. Have a system in place for how you do this for every loss, every time. Whether it be, I've got my timeline, my workflow from my claim management software of getting my estimate done, my photo report done, my expert reports. I've got my timeline, and now they're all ready to go for my packet to the carrier. Great. If it's some other internal system you have, fine. Whatever works for you, but create a system. We talked about this in the very first Lunch and Learn from this series, part one of the Perfect Claim, about setting up that system. And this is a critical aspect of it, is having a system in place makes your life a lot easier so that you're not scrambling before every single first inspection to get this stuff put together. You've got a system in place that takes care of it. There is a ton of new age tech and software that can get you here. And I know there's probably some people on this webinar that are kind of old school adjusters. I get it. But the new tech that is out there, the new software that is out there can be helpful and beneficial. And most of it's not that hard to learn. So I don't care if you've been doing it for 50 years, it's something that you should be looking into. All right, so now that we have our system in place, you want to have an organized approach to presenting this to the carrier. I would recommend a folder on every claim that you present. You've got, if you want to put the money into it, your logo on the front, and just a folder that you can hand them on every loss. If not, I don't care if it's a manila folder, but you give them a packet of these documents to present so they've got it in an organized fashion. You want to make sure it looks professional, right? Presentation matters. They know the difference of dealing with, the backwoods adjuster who's just taking one or two claims here and there and doesn't really know what they're doing versus the professional company that provides the professional presentation and reports to them that they can rely on. And it matters to them because they know that there is a different fight involved and a different level of credibility that the professional report will have versus the handwritten notes on a napkin, right? That makes a difference to them. It will make a difference in these claims. Easy to read. You want to make sure that whatever you are presenting is presented in a way that is easy to read, comprehend, and review. Because the easier this is for them to go through, the more likely that you are going to let them rely on your documentation rather than theirs. You don't want to get to a point where you're overloading them with too much information, or that you're doing a 20-page letter just to describe the loss. I mean, that stuff's not necessary. You want easy bullet point type presentation to the carriers for every one of these claims. Hard copy and electronic copy. A lot of people in the world nowadays use electronic copy for nearly everything, but it doesn't mean you should limit the hard copy when you actually go to that loss with them. When you show up and you've got your polo with your logo on it, and you've got your folder to present them and say, hey, I've put everything together for you that you could possibly need on this. I've got the photos, I've got the causation reports, I've got the estimate. It's all yours. Here you go. I'm an open book, right? It gives you that level of trust of you're not trying to hide anything. And when you add into that, oh, by the way, I'm going to send you an electronic copy of this too, so you don't have to worry about scanning that. I'll send it to you. You can have my ESX. You can base it off of that. We can get through this real quick and easy for everybody involved. I'm telling you, you're going to see, if you start to do this and you didn't do it before, you will see a difference in how adjusters deal with you on a day-to-day basis. All right, so the other things, the mental state and mindset of the opposing appraiser, I wrote appraiser, should have been opposing adjuster matters. So all of these things that we talked about in that prior slide, candidly throughout this entire presentation, all affects their mindset going into it. If you don't believe that how they think about you and the loss matters, candidly, you're crazy. It makes a difference. It makes a huge difference as to what is happening with the outcome of a claim. So you want to make sure you've always got that correct presentation. All right. Presenting a professional packet that's easy to follow and proves the loss will make life easier down the road. This is one of the most important lines in this entire slide. Because up to this moment, I imagine a lot of people watching this are saying, Tony, you're nuts. That is a lot of work to do on a claim that I don't even know if it's going to be covered yet. Right? And I can see that. I get why you're thinking it, but I don't believe that it is true. And it's certainly not true in the experiences that I have had on these claims. The reason being is the time put in to doing the estimate ahead of time, doing the photo packet, getting those causation reports, putting it together in a good packet for the carrier. You are going to find that it's going to save you the time down the road because A, you're probably going to have to do it anyway. And B, they're going to be more likely to rely on it. I don't know how many ways I need to say it, but if they believe you and trust you and like you, they are much more likely to just say, okay, to you, right? They are going to say, I get it. I see the proof. I've got what I need. Thank you so much. Let's get this thing wrapped up. And then as a result, you're not going to have those fights down the road. You're not going to have to do 3 or 4, 5 dispute letters to the carrier over, issue A, B, and C. And you're not going to have to do all of that down the road because you put the time in early. I understand it feels like a lot, but I really want you to give this a shot because you're going to see it saves you that time down the road with these claims that will make a difference. If it doesn't for you, I want to hear about it. So I really want you to know, and especially for all of these lunch and learns and any of the information that I'm giving, if someone feels that this is terribly inaccurate or I've tried this, it just doesn't work, I want to hear why, because I'll sit down and I will talk to you about that process and whatever you've gone through to make sure that we're on the same page. You're doing what I think you should be doing, and if it's not working, then maybe I need to change my tune. And I'm all for it. I'm willing to admit when I'm wrong. So if you find something like that, let me know. All right. This is the time spent now, save time later. Same explanation. Not going to worry about it. So what do we do when they come in and they've already made up their mind, right? If you're coming in after the fact and they've already done that inspection, or you did the presentation and they disagree with it. We're going to get into real detail about this actually at the next Lunch and Learn about disputing a denied claim and what you're supposed to do. But I want to hit on some of the important ones for anyone that won't be making it next time, or anyone that wants that jumping off point right now, because this is difficult, right? Changing somebody's mind is tough, but there are some do's and don'ts for it. So I want to go over those with you. These are do's and don'ts to changing a person's mind. And I can't stress these enough because I constantly see adjusters that are violating these in one way or another. So I want to go through them and then talk about them. So first and foremost, polite, succinct, and clear. I didn't do it in that order. Polite, clear, and succinct. It is unbelievably important to just keep your points to just the points that matter for this. You don't need to add in a ton of extra information just because you think it makes you sound smarter or makes you sound like you've got more knowledge of the issue. You want to be very straightforward, and you want to do it politely. There's no reason to be yelling, being rude, long-winded, or cross with them. You don't need to do that. There's no reason for it. This is one of the best tricks. I've talked about it before, and I'm going to talk about it again, both here and probably in the future, but you want to use questions to get them to your answer. And this goes conversely with the telling them what is right and what is wrong and telling them what you think. You don't need to do this, and you never really should. Nobody changes their mind by me just telling you you're wrong, here's what I think. It doesn't work. If anyone has gotten into any kind of arguments or debates with somebody, it will always end with you walking away and saying, nope, you're just wrong, sorry, and being done with it. It doesn't work. This works. And the reason this works so well is it allows their brain to start actually churning those cogs and seeing the path that you want them to see, right? So you start off by saying something like, okay, I understand you think the roof's got wear and tear. All right, well, let's talk about this. You agree with me that wind can damage shingles on a roof, right? Easy, obvious yes question. They have to say yes to that. Great. And you'd agree with me that one of the things that wind can do to a roof is lift the shingles and break that seal underneath, right? That can happen. Great. And another thing that can happen is it can actually crease that shingle and cause a line at the top of that shingle, right? Yeah. Okay, and you'd agree with me that it can tear off shingles to the roof. Yeah, I can. And you'd agree with me that debris actually can get under there as this is happening and flapping around so it won't reseal properly, right? Well, yeah, that can happen too. All right, and in this house, we've got all of those things that happened, right? We agree that they happened. Yes. But your answer is you believe that it's not from wind that can cause all of these things. It just happens to be the wear and tear. And all of a sudden they can get that clicking moment of, all right, well, that's a lot of coincidence for wear and tear. And you can use that type of argument to let them get to the answer, right? Use the questions the right way. This takes practice, it takes skill, and it is absolutely something every single one of you should be working on, myself included, whenever you're dealing with these insurance companies. But if there's one thing to take away from this entire board right now, it's the using questions. In addition, you want to cite to proof, right? Too often in our world, in our society, people just say things without proof, right? Or they think that there's proof of something and there isn't actually proof because they only read a headline versus reading the article. It is unbelievable how often you can see that just in day-to-day life, right? Somebody makes a point or makes an argument based off of an article's title rather than actually reading the article itself. Now, for anyone that does ultimately read the articles, you often find that whatever it says in the title is often hyperbole or some other type of I don't want to call it a misrepresentation, but an exaggeration of whatever the truth really is. And this happens so often when people are quoting or rephrasing a quote in the title, right? X person says, the sun is blue. And then you get into the article and they say, oh, well, depending on the time of the day, the sun has an appearance, during a couple minutes of every day where it may appear blue. Something like that is being rephrased incorrectly or exaggerated just to pull you into the article. But too many people base opinions off of that. I rant a little bit, but it's all because you need to, in your industry, cite to the proof, right? Cite to the answer. If you want to tell them that the policy that they're citing to is inaccurate because they're ignoring the ensuing loss provision, right? It's one of the number one things that carriers forget is they put in the denial language for the coverage, but then they just omit that ensuing loss coverage under there. Point to the policy, show them the language, show them the pictures that prove what you're talking about. This one is huge, right? You want to dispute a roof, right? They want to say that it's nail pops on the roof and it's not broken seams. Well, show them the broken seams. Show them broken seams. Show them the lifted shingles, right? Don't just say that it's not there. Show them the picture. If you don't have the picture, then you didn't watch my prior lunch and learns and you didn't take them, but you should be, right? Talk about the Unfair Insurance Settlement Practices Act. Send them the codes to say, look, we really need to resolve this because the code says this and you're not doing it. Again, you can do it politely. You can be reasonable, but you can still be firm about it. Talk about the code. Use the undisputable things against them, right? Use the pictures of the torn shingles, of the lifted siding, of whatever the water damage is, whatever it may be. Use the proof. Whenever you get to an opinion, you're just not going to change their mind, right? If you get to a point where it is my engineer versus your engineer, I'm sorry, the chances of you ultimately getting coverage without having to go to litigation slim to none. But if you can actually fight them on facts and focus the argument on facts, not what you think, not what you believe happened or your opinions, but actual facts, you're going to go far, far further with convincing them of your position. So you want to make sure that you're not telling them just what to think. You're not telling them what you think. You're never telling them that they are wrong, right? As soon as you say those words, look, I'm sorry, but you're wrong. They are putting up a wall, and they are just mentally going to fight back so much more because nobody wants to be wrong. But if you just walk them through the process without telling them they're wrong, walk them through with these questions, step by step, one fact at a time, you will see you will have a much, much better opportunity to change their mind. As always, I will do the plug for Mapia. Mapia is the Mid-Atlantic Association of Public Insurance Adjusters. It is an absolutely fantastic organization that I work with, and we provide the CE credits. We do great holiday parties. a ton of great stuff, but one of the biggest ones that I always push for is the supporting of our lobbyists. We work with a lobbyist in the area who tracks all of the lobbying efforts by the carriers, and we push back when we need to. It is invaluable to this industry because if it weren't for organizations like Mapia, there would be no pushback on um, on the hill, as they say, for any of these regulations that the carriers are trying to get through. Please, please think about joining Mapia or other local organizations that have that type of work and provide that support for the industry because it makes a huge difference. And it's not expensive. It's $300 for a whole year that you get to be involved with. Again, if you're part of Mapia, you get a discount on the PA GPS, and it's only $79. So please think about doing that. So there's a few questions. As always, I'm open for any questions you guys have. I know Mario's already added at least one or two in that have come from the talk today, but whenever you're registering, you can ask questions as well, or tell us ideas that you either disagree with things we've talked about or future talks you want us to have. We're always happy to have those as well. Be sure to get those questions in now because by the time I get to the end and I say goodbye, there's been a bit of a habit of throwing in those last second questions, and I feel really bad because we didn't get a chance to get to them. So Mario, as always, is behind the scenes adding these in, and if you've got questions, please let us know. So what is the best way to present an appraisal? Most of the way you're going to present an appraisal is the exact same way we talked about presenting this loss, right? You want to have your ducks in a row and you want to go in there knowing exactly what you were going to be presenting for the claim. The biggest difference in appraisal, because the thing that a lot of people are missing, the most important part of appraisal is naming the umpire, and it should be done from day one. Because if you have your umpire, you have somebody to go to when the carrier's not doing what, or when the carrier's appraiser is not doing what they're supposed to do, right? You've got someone to say, look, I've reached out for 30 days. I'm not getting a response. I'm not getting an estimate from them. Can we either send this thing to you for final determination? Can we get a schedule from you? They kind of act as the judge of the appraisal and can help guide when there are problems that happen. Appraisal is a completely different beast these days. I mean, we did a whole lunch and learn. If you go back, one of them that I had done was completely on appraisals. I would highly suggest checking it out because it talks a lot about this, but it really is a different beast. Appraisals are taking extraordinarily long. They are refusing appraisal in New Jersey on scope issues. They're trying to do it in PA, although state law doesn't allow that. They are trying to take things. I've had appraisers try and take things out that were previously paid for. I mean, it's just becoming this more contentious, terrible process so often in these claims. And I think there needs to be some real change. And I'm working with some people to come up with some ideas on that. If you'd like to discuss that with me, please reach out. But the real key to all of this is you're presenting it with the proofs and the facts, just like you would present the claim to the carrier. You're just doing it from more of that considered independent position. But go back and check out that appraisal lunch and learn. I think that'll give you a lot more detail as to the presentation. Allstate adjuster is pressing the insured for bills to determine coverage. Insured has no gas and electric in their name, but utilities are on at the time of inspection. The adjuster still wants 6 months of bills. What do I do? All right. So for this one, there's a few questions that or a few assumptions that I have to make. My first assumption is that there is either a question about residency or a question about heat at the property. Otherwise, I don't know why they're asking for utility bills, but assuming one of those is an issue, try and get them, right? I get that they're not under the client's name, but who cares, right? There are a ton of situations, a ton of clients that I've had where children will pay for their parents' utilities. I had one that came in the other day where a business partner was paying utilities for the properties, including the property where the other business partner lived, so it was under their name. So what? There's absolutely nothing in the policy that says the utilities have to be in my name to prove residency that the heat was on. Candidly, if it's a heating issue on a frozen pipe case, just show the heat's on. I don't care whose name it's at. It could be under their name. Show the heat's on, so get to them. As for the issue of residency, if that's what they're going for, you can give them this, but when you do it, maybe you also want to give them copies of the mail that was sent to the property at the name for the name of the person who was living there. Maybe you've got the driver's license for the address, or maybe you've got some paychecks that might have that address. Do some digging to get some of that additional information as well. All right, so how do I respond to a denial letter? This one is a fantastic question because, first and foremost, there are way too many people that I deal with that don't respond to denial letters at all. Their first course of action is to call me and say, Tony, litigate this thing. But first and foremost, I'm happy with those calls because I'm happy to litigate these for everyone. But I don't want to litigate a case if there hasn't been at least one response to the denial letter. There should always be at least one. And we're going to talk at length about this at the next Lunch and Learn. So I don't want to give away too much, but know that we will be going over this at the next Lunch and Learn quite in depth. And I've talked about it, I think, in some of the other letter campaign, Lunch and Learn, and some prior ones as well. We're going to have an entire focus on what to do when a claim is denied at the next Lunch and Learn. So make sure you tune in for that. We often receive claims after a payment has already been issued, meaning a reserve has already been set. Is it advisable to request them to adjust the reserve with our letter of presentation? Otherwise, how can we effectively get them to adjust their reserve amount? Great question. Whoever asked it, kudos to you. You absolutely can ask them to adjust the reserve. And the best way for you to go about doing that is to have that packet, that presentation packet ready to send with your representation. To say, hey, we've gotten involved. We want you to know, we want you to adjust the reserve. And here is why, right? Here is the additional proofs for the roof or the plumbing or whatever access costs, whatever it may be. Here are the proofs for it. Here is the estimate for it. On top of it, by the way, here's a contractor to support our estimate for it. Give them as much as you can to get them to adjust that reserve. I'm telling you, it's not going to be an easy thing. It is actually tough for them to adjust the reserve. But as soon as you ask, you're raising flags on their end to actually get it done. And it puts you in a far better position than if you were to just stay silent on this and hope for the best when it comes to the reserve amounts. So this is a great idea. I'm all for it. So you just want to do it with those proofs. All right. As always, thank you guys so much. If you've got additional questions, feel free to email me anytime. My email address is right here. You've also got my cell phone. Cannot stress enough, if you need to bug me, bug me. I don't care. I'm often in depths in court. You want to send me a text and remind me the next day that you texted me or emailed me, go to town. I'm happy to have it. This is, again, the QR code for the PAGPS for anybody that wants to sign up. I think it is going to be an incredible conference, and candidly, one of the only ones I know about, the only one I know about in this area. Otherwise, you've got to be going up to Rhode Island or down to Florida or out to Texas. This one is going to be focused for people in the area and have a national reach when it comes to the education. So feel free to sign up. Otherwise, thank you so much.